We're ready?
We are ready.
Okay, I'd like to call this meeting to order. Please rise for the pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Can I please have the roll call, Mrs. Reed? Is she not here? Mrs. Reed is not here?
Lois, you're muted. If you want to turn off your mute.
Okay, Lauren Cieslak.
Here.
Dale Hine.
Here.
Jillian Emmert.
Here.
Jason Bashaw.
Here.
Christy Cooper.
Here.
Dwayne Dietrich. Sean McGinley.
Here.
Donald Panto.
Here.
And Carol Cunningham.
Here. We had an executive session prior to this meeting for legal and personnel reasons. And I'd like to move to number 5, Catty School District Health and Safety Plan, presented by Mr. Spengler and Dr. Lutz Denley.
Okay, thank you very much. We've been looking forward to this opportunity to present sort of the culmination of many months and quite a number of folks involved in developing this plan. So I appreciate the opportunity. Wayne, I don't know if you want to turn that into like presentation mode.
Oh, sure.
If that works for you, or whatever works best for you, Wayne.
Nope, that works.
Okay. For those people viewing from home, you are welcome to scan that QR code that is in the corner of the presentation you see on your screen. That QR code will actually link you out to the full version of the plan. Wayne, if you just go back to the title, there we go.
Oh, there we go.
All right, so there's a QR code in the upper right that does give you a link to the entire detailed plan. This presentation that you'll see tonight is really a synopsis of the plan. So really the purpose of tonight is to give you an overview of the plan, to talk about the various options that are embedded in the plan, and an overview of the actions that have been taken and are being taken for the 2021 reopening. So the burning question is always, what's the model that we're going to use when we start in September, or in August, actually, August 31st? So, the answer to that right now, we're going to be very honest as we progress through this, is that we don't know what the option that we're going to start with is yet. That will be developed, soon, but it will be really based on really two things. One will be the survey results. We will be sending out a survey shortly that allows our parents to choose one of the options that we will discuss tonight, along with what the landscape is out there at that time related to COVID-19 and any actions our governor may take. So, certainly over the next couple of weeks, that will become more clear for all of us. But that question, is not answered tonight as far as what option will we open with. So just wanted to let you know that. The presentation is really a synopsis of everything that has happened, and details, and links are certainly embedded within the plan. So at this point, we will get started. Wayne, next slide. Thank you. Tonight we'll talk about, I'll just do a quick introduction and an overview. We'll talk about the parent guardian feedback and the district response. If you recall, we did a district-wide survey a few weeks ago. So we, have that information, and we certainly use that information. Christina will talk about that. We'll talk about the regional and district level planning. So you have some level of understanding about all of the people and resources that have been involved in this planning process. We will obviously give you a health and safety plan overview covering items like instructional models, the level of community spread and district responses, staff and student wellness, prevention methods, transportation, building level protocols and procedures, and professional development. So process overview, and board members and those individuals, when you access the full-blown plan, you will see there were literally hundreds of people who were involved in the development of this plan, and tens of regional agencies. And when I say regional, it's not just within our local region, but additionally at the state level. So we really started, a lot of this work back in April, in which we really developed a regional task force involving all of the school districts in Carbon, Lehigh, Northampton, Monroe, and Pike County, which comprise, really the whole Lehigh Valley and all those school districts that are integral to Carbon, Lehigh Intermediate Unit and Colonial Northampton Intermediate Unit. So all those groups were involved. They're all identified in the plan. So that group really identified and created a base plan that the majority of school districts have used as their boilerplate plan. And then those boilerplates were brought back to the local district for more local and regional feedback. So all that was involved in part of the process. Additionally, I must identify the fact that our school board has played a crucial role. They have been kept up to date on certainly the legal aspects of moving ahead here. Our board, kudos to our school board members, because I think our school board has acted extremely prudently during this time frame. This school board has hired 2 additional teachers for classroom size reduction, 1 additional teacher at Scheckler and 1 at the middle school. So this is beyond replacing teachers who retired. We actually added staffing because we knew proactively that we would need to address these issues. This plan that the school board will consider this evening also has the appointment of 12, I'll call them building substitutes. We know that we will need to employ the flexibility as our staff may become affected by this issue. We need the flexibility to have professionals at our disposal. So the board has supported the fact of hiring building level subs to cover absences and help with small group instruction and things like that. Our school board approved the addition of another school resource officer. So there will be 1 school resource officer per school building. These are all things that help us as we kind of navigate, the road ahead, because it's really important that we have flexibility as we move ahead. We are not going to be able to predict every single item that occurs or every dilemma that we'll face. But if we have flexibility, we can more easily handle them. Our school board also approved through our CARES funding grant, approved over $500,000 in the purchase of iPads. So we have 1 iPad, a brand new iPad for every single student in the school district. We have purchased personal protective equipment, PPE, if I use the right acronym there, cleaning supplies, cleaning equipment. So I would like to publicly thank our board of school directors for responding in the way you did in adding staff rather than cutting staff, in allowing us the flexibility to move ahead, and allowing us to purchase both the instructional tools and the management tools that we need to move ahead. So thank you very much. Okay, Wayne, I am on I think the guiding principles for the reopening. It might be back one.
Okay, yeah, we're having a problem with the pages displaying in presentation mode.
Okay.
Um,
Or you can progress. I mean, if you want to go back to the other mode, that certainly works for me, Wayne.
all right.
Whatever works for you. I'm good. Okay, so let's go down to slide. I did the introduction and overview, the guiding principles, number 4. That would be great. Okay, so really our number one priority in the reopening of our schools is to ensure the safety and wellness of our students and staff. Certainly, if safety becomes compromised, we will certainly move to some other model that is within our plan or online. Also, delivering high quality instruction to students regardless of the delivery model. So now we'll talk about various instructional models, but we have a goal to have high quality instruction inherent to each of those. Also providing parents predictability and choice in learning options that we heard loud and clear. Christina shortly will talk a little bit about some of the results of our survey. So we saw that clearly, that predictability and some choice became very important. I do need to mention predictability. Predictability is certainly inherent in all models to some extent. It is our goal to open as close as we possibly can to 5 days a week of full instruction. And we, at least in the beginning, we certainly thought that that model would be the most predictable for parents and the most robust in educational quality. But as we progress through, one of the dilemmas and challenges are if we encounter a number of cases or illnesses, whether that's relative to our student body or even more likely to our staff, as far as having an impact, the 5-day per model could quickly become the least predictable model because we may need to alter that approach, midstream. It really could be a daily decision that I would have to make if we're opening a grade level, we're moving a grade level to online. It could be a full school building or the full school district on a daily basis. So we're going to talk about that a little bit later, but it's important that everyone understands we certainly want the highest level of predictability, both for our educational programming, but even for our parents, in attaining childcare and being able to, procure that. So that's one of the things that we really are, watching carefully. And also to optimize the use of our resources. So those are the 4 guiding principles that we attempted to weave through the planning process. Thank you. At this point, I will turn over to Christina, who will give us an overview of the parent and guardian feedback via the latest survey.
Good evening, everyone. I would like to share the results of our parent guardian feedback survey that we administered back in the end of May and early June. And there really were 2 main purposes for this survey. The first being to gather parent and student feedback related to their experience with spring online learning. And second, we wanted to ascertain parents' opinions about fall learning options and how they were feeling and what parents felt would be the best option for their child at that time. Of course, as Bob said, we recognize that in light of recent events, some parents' opinions may have changed, and we are well aware that we will need to resurvey our parents, and we are planning that for the end of this week, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. So on this slide here, you can see a summary of the feedback that we received from parents and students. And first, that first row going across the top, you can see for both parents and students, it was very much the same. The things that they enjoyed were the flexibility, the face-to-face interactions, and the teacher feedback on the assignments. When you go to the second row, you can see that parents struggled or found it to be challenging to balance their personal work with supporting their schoolwork of their children. They also struggled with motivating their children and managing their child's workload. Students, on the other hand, on the right-hand side there, the second row across, their challenges were more with motivation to complete assignments. They had difficulty understanding the material when they didn't have a teacher right there next to them, whom they could contact to ask questions. And Wayne, if you, yeah, thank you. And they were also really missing their social interactions with friends. The bottom there, we asked parents and students what would make the online learning experience better for them. And these are things that we found very helpful as we are looking to plan for next year. And you can see parents really identified that there needed to be more interaction with teachers. And if you recall, our spring model of learning focused on an asynchronous model. And part of the reason for that was because we had students that were sharing devices. So we had one device per family, which meant that, you know, you could have 4 students or 4 children in one household sharing a device. So it would have been very difficult to schedule and manage schedules that required synchronous meeting times. So more interaction with the teachers was recommended, more communication. Consistency came up in a number of areas, consistency with regard to communication and communication platforms, as well as consistency with the delivery of assignments and the learning management system. There was a request for more structure, and certainly the sharing of devices, as I mentioned, that was a challenge. Parents also mentioned that they would often find out at the end of a week or on a Sunday night that their child had not completed the assignments, and they felt like they had to scramble very quickly to get their students to get their children to complete the work. So having a way of monitoring their child's progress in an ongoing fashion was recommended, as well as help with logging into the various platforms. Our teachers were using a number of online resources and web tools, and many required different usernames and passwords. So, you know, those things we really took very seriously, and we use that to plan, we're using that to plan what our online learning and well, what our learning model will look like in the fall. And you can see pretty similarly, students also responded with a lot of the same types of things. They certainly would like more interaction. They requested more live instruction. They prefer the live instruction over the asynchronous instruction, and also a need for more feedback from their teachers. So Wayne, if you could go to the next slide. On the next slide, this kind of summarizes, and I realize that this is a little bit small in this view here, but this slide actually summarizes what we are looking to do in the fall, taking into account the feedback that we receive from parents and students. So we are looking to implement a consistent communication plan using a tool called Remind. And that tool would be used by teachers, by building administrators, and by district administrators to have one main way of communicating with parents and providing information to parents. And we can provide information related to learning and what's happening in the classroom. We can provide information related to building and or district announcements, as well as urgent messaging through the Remind tool. We will continue to use our district website as well as social media. The second row there highlights technology. We heard loud and clear that the sharing of devices was a challenge for both students and their families. So we have utilized grant funds to purchase iPads for all of our students K-12. Cathy and Wayne are working very hard, and Carla is working very hard to get those iPads ready to be distributed to all of our students at the start of this school year. With regard to our learning management systems there in the next row, we will be using Google Classroom in grades kindergarten through 8, and we will be using Canvas in grades 9 through 12. So we will have consistent learning management systems that will be utilized to deliver information, instructional materials, online resources, and that will also be the way that our students will be submitting assignments. We will return to a traditional grading scale. So we had modified grading in some cases taking place in the spring. So we will return to our traditional grading scale as well as traditional attendance taking. Clever is the next item that is listed there, and Clever is a tool that's used for single sign-on. So again, we heard from parents and students the challenges with signing into multiple online resources and tools and having to remember all kinds of passwords. So with the use of Clever, that should allow for single sign-on, making it much more efficient. It will take less time and should be much easier for all of our parents and students. The next item on there is the use of diagnostic assessments and personalized learning pathways. We also heard in comments from the survey that parents were concerned. They understood that we were not able to cover the amount of material that we would typically cover in a face-to-face learning environment just due to the situation this past spring. So our school district, we have a variety of online assessments that will allow us to administer diagnostic assessments to students. We'll be able to identify their areas of need, and then we can administer personalized learning pathways through the use of technology tools that we have available to us to help address those gaps that students have in their learning. We have also devoted quite a bit of grant funding toward the purchase of high quality standards aligned resources and materials. These updated resources and materials will provide students with up-to-date high quality online resources. So we are really excited about that. We do have a number of textbooks on the board agenda for approval this evening. And finally on this slide, you'll see virtual meetings. We will be using Google Meet as the K-12 tool for our virtual meetings. In the spring, we were using a combination of both Zoom and Google Meet, and for some parents and families, it was challenging knowing which one to use and when to use it. So we have decided to be consistent and utilize Google Meet K-12. So some of those are just, some of the teaching and learning enhancements, but I would say those are the big ones that we're looking at putting into place for the start of next school year. And I will turn things over to Bob.
Thank you, Christina. Excellent job capturing the feedback we received from the community, and then also what we did in response to those, to the feedback and to those issues. So thank you. Okay, so we're going to really now get into like the actual plan. So you heard about who was involved, the significant level of both regional, state, and local involvement. All of our local stakeholders that have been involved in the planning process. Now we actually talk about the plan. So this particular slide gives you a really nice, concise overview of, generically speaking, what's in the plan. So I'll just go through each of these blocks for just a couple minutes here. Social distancing. The school district will practice social distancing as much as possible to the maximum extent possible. We'll maximize the amount of space between students and reduce the amount of time they're in close contact with each other. So right now, as we stand with current enrollment, if all of our students were to, and I'll just talk, kind of K-8 classrooms right now in particular, if we had full enrollment, we could achieve approximately 24 or so students in a classroom. Basically, there's some grade levels that are a little higher that we need to move to other locations, to larger classrooms, but we can basically achieve 3 to 4 feet between students in classrooms right now. And that's not counting the impact of, the number of students that may participate in our online program, which would reduce the number of students in our classrooms. And in our cafeteria, we are now required as of this past Friday with the most recent Department of Health guidelines to have a clear 6 feet of distance between students in the cafeteria. So those are the standards that we will work off of as we, complete our planning. Hygiene practices, we certainly, those are embedded in the plan. We have relied on CDC and Pennsylvania Department of Health guidelines for materials and products that we are purchasing. We have to be very careful. We have all gained quite an education on different chemicals and what is COVID approved and what is not COVID approved. And you have to be really careful when you're purchasing these products to make sure that they are aligned with those CDC and Department of Health guidelines. We will issue and use PPE by our staff. We will provide that for our staff and approved essential visitors. Daily wellness checks. Our plan includes the requirement for both our students and our employees to do daily temperature checks prior to reporting to work or school. That is a component of their responsibility. If an individual, whether it's a child or parent or a staff member or an employee, if they do have, one of the particular, a temperature or something like that, they will need to report that. That immediately triggers administration to manage things from there. School visitors, I mentioned school visitors earlier. Non-essential visitors will not be allowed to enter our school buildings. One of the keys to prevent the spread of any sort of illness is to minimize getting into our buildings and minimizing breaking the envelope of our school buildings. So we're going to eliminate any non-essential visitations, and essential visitors will be issued face coverings and have to complete a COVID-19 questionnaire upon entry. Face coverings, which has been sort of a hot topic, as you all know. We did receive very specific Department of Health guidance on that as recent as Friday. So in those sorts of manners, the plan is really a fluid plan. Our plan is linked out to Department of Health and CDC sites that provide regular updates. So at this point, face coverings are required at the bus stop, on school buses, on the way to classrooms, in classrooms, on the way to the cafeteria, in the cafeteria, except obviously for when students are eating, and on their way back to the classroom. We are, and I'm sure principals will talk about this when we get to their point, we are instituting or including in the plan face covering breaks in which our students, travel to larger areas. They can spread out, do some wellness checks, remove their face coverings, go outside, those sorts of things. So that the face covering rule has been a recent development and requirement by our Department of Health. So, we'll see if those items change over time or not. Transportation, at this point, we are including a seating arrangement of 2 students per seat in our school buses with face covering wearing required. Our buses and transportation fleet will be cleaned and disinfected frequently between runs, etc. You will see parents in the survey that comes out. I think we are planning on Friday. That survey will allow you to do 2 things. One, to choose an instructional model between online and in person, and also identify if you wish to use district transportation or if you wish to transport your child. That will allow us to potentially either have single runs or double runs. So initially, because we do need to, especially at the elementary level, we are reducing the number of students on each vehicle. The potential exists for double runs. However, if we have a number of students who choose to not take district transportation or they participate in the online option, the virtual option, that will lessen the need for transportation, and we may be able to do single runs. So that's kind of a couple of the examples of why we're in a state of flux until we receive some of that information back from our parents. Cleaning and disinfecting, Lois will talk about this a little bit later, but we have a training program for our entire custodial staff. We are using approved disinfectants in a cleaning process that ensures the proper dwell time. So the whole cleaning and disinfecting of these areas is a new process. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. So, we'll get into detail on that, but that it requires both training and some new procedures. Meals, I talked a little bit about meals. We do need to provide 6 feet of social distance for our students in our cafeterias. Principals will talk about this a little bit, but the bottom line is we're expanding our cafeteria and food service areas to accommodate that. Students or staff who are showing symptoms, we have established isolation areas so that when individuals do exhibit certain symptoms, we can manage that. We can contact trace and quarantine if possible, and then make some educational transitions there for that. So that's an example. If a particular student or staff member does have particular symptoms, as we perform contact tracing, that could lead to a transition to online learning for a student, a group of students, a classroom, a grade level, a school building, etc., based on exposure. And the last item there, teaching and learning, we did really strongly consider the parent and student feedback survey data that Christina just spoke about in designing our options. And the options here are really no mystery. I mean, I think most people have heard these options in other school districts at this point already, as most school districts are on a very similar timeline. We do have an option that is a traditional K-12 learning option that looks very much like a 5-day per week instructional model. The school day may be slightly shorter because of some transportation configuration we need to do, monitoring, and also additional preparation time, etc. So, but basically that's a traditional 5-day per week model. There's also a full online learning option. We have offered an online Catty Academy for a number of years now. We will certainly, continue providing an online learning option that is parallel to our board-approved curriculum and is significantly more robust than what we encountered this spring, and also incorporates all of the suggestions and concerns that we heard from students, staff, and parents into that new model. Option C, we call home education. Well, that's really homeschooling. That's something that we've had for ages. That's in school code. That is something that is certainly allowed. That is not the online program. That is really, homeschooling in accordance with the Pennsylvania school code. And that process, any parents who have that need or that choice, they contact my office, and then we, start the process there. So that's just in general, kind of the plan in a short bit. Next slide. Okay, Wayne.
Yeah, that is,
Okay.
are you saying it, Bob?
Okay, yep, we're good.
Oh, okay.
Thank you, Wayne. Learning options, just real briefly here, we value the student experience. We want to mitigate and manage any potential health risks, and very importantly, the ability to pivot between options based on what might happen. We preserve in-school instruction as an option. We provide a fully online remote learning option, and incorporate student needs throughout that. Certainly, we're attempting to minimize health risks while at school, And again, that agility to be able to move between the different instructional models based on what might occur. The next slide, which is learning options, which is slide 10. I spoke about this to some extent already. The traditional option, which is option A, students attend their school in an assigned school building 5 days a week, appropriate health and safety protocols. We'll hear some more details about this as principals speak later in the presentation. But we're doing things like moving the kindergarten through 8th classrooms are all self-contained so that we minimize student movement and student interaction. Social distancing practices are employed throughout. So the structure of the classroom looks very different than what you might recall or think in a traditional Sheckler Elementary classroom. We need to spread desks out. We need to remove high-touch materials such as the classroom library, any manipulatives that are shared between students. Those types of things those processes and procedures are changed due to the new situation. So the classroom looks very different, but safety is our highest concern in any of these models. So that's our traditional model. The other end of the spectrum is the CASD online program. We spoke about that. We do now, each student is issued an iPad throughout the district, K through 12. And this model is really, as I said before, and Christina emphasized, this model is really based on the feedback we've received from parents, staff, and students. And it is all really based on our learning management systems. The home education, as I mentioned, is really homeschooling, so that not to be confused with the online program, but that's really another option that we just want to make sure that people are aware of. Option D, the hybrid option, quite honestly, this is one that was, at least initially, in our initial survey, was probably the least favored by parents. The hybrid option is one in that students are basically divided into 2 groups, and one group would attend in-school instruction, so let's say Monday and Tuesday. Wednesday would be synchronously from home online, and Thursday and Friday would be asynchronously online at home. The other group would be in school, would be asynchronously attending school Monday and Tuesday. Wednesday would be synchronous, and their days in school would be Thursday and Friday. So it's basically a 2-day in-school face-to-face model with 3 days of online instruction. The goal of that particular model is to reduce numbers of students in a school building, in a classroom, to something that we can achieve, probably more than 6 feet distance between students. So that's really, it's kind of a last resort option to this point. It has been viewed as that. But if something occurs where we cannot possibly meet Department of Health mandates, it's something that I may need to implement. So we're putting it out there as one of the potential options, quite honestly. Okay. This chart really just identifies the fact that we could have transitions from any model to any model. So we could have the individual student transition to online learning. So they could have been in the classroom, and because of a particular situation, they now need to be online. It could be a small group of students. Due to our contact tracing, we identified a small group of students who have been exposed to a suspect case, and that small group of students would need to transition to full online. We could have a full classroom do the same thing. Could be a grade level, a building level, or the district. So when you start to understand some of these things, you begin to understand and realize the fact that, any of the full-blown instructional face-to-face models do come with quite a bit of potential unpredictability, just due to the fact that, someone could be exposed. Again, closures, I know this chart is fairly self-explanatory, but you could, there are a variety of targeted school closures. Any of the school buildings could be closed with no face-to-face instruction occurring at that particular building, other buildings remaining open. So it could be any combination of that. Staff and student wellness. We included Donna Tersha, who is our nurse in our whole process and procedure. So our health department will certainly be monitoring high-risk staff and students. Certainly a benefit of being a small school district and small school buildings, that quite honestly, our health staff knows our individuals, both employees and students, so incredibly well. But that will be a formal process that those high-risk staff and students are monitored. We talked about screening and monitoring of students and staff. I probably spoke a little bit too much about that earlier, but we do have a process in which there is self-reporting as a key component, and then those students or staff are monitored, and then we have a specific procedure relative to them returning to work, etc. Face coverings and social distancing. I did speak about face coverings. That is a theme, a consistent theme throughout the district and throughout the entire region now that the Department of Health has issued their mandate on face coverings. So just a couple points, face coverings, it could be a mask, and it could be also a shield, a face shield. So the face shield, for the purposes of the governor's order, a face shield does or is the same as a face mask. So our students will be required to have with them a face covering at all times to utilize when we cannot achieve the proper social distancing. We talked about school visitors. Only essential school visitors will be, admitted to our buildings, and those that are essential will complete a questionnaire. Behavioral health supports, within the process of the whole COVID situation, it has certainly taken its toll on, many individuals, our students, our staff, parents. So those behavioral health supports, I guess I must also mention, I should have done this earlier, our board has been incredible with supporting a very strong behavioral health program in our school district. I think we now have 5 behavioral health employees working in our school district to provide behavioral and mental health supports for our students, families, and when necessary, our staff as well. And we do have a employee support system as well. Okay, prevention methods. Ooh. I think prevention methods might be Lois's
It is.
area.
Good evening. My name is Lois Reed, and we're going to talk a little bit about the prevention methods that we're planning to use. The first bullet point is cleaning, sanitizing, and disinfecting. As Mr. Spangler had mentioned, that we learned a whole lot of things about EPA registered products. We will be performing all in the accordance of the CDC and the Department of Health guidelines. The products that we will use will be on the EPA approved list, which is actually for COVID-19. There was a question that came up via Facebook, and I'll address that right now. It was the amount of cleaning products that we're able to acquire. The good news is that there is a lot more available to us commercially than there is from the retail standpoint. We have ordered, as an example, we've ordered a year's worth of antibacterial soap, so that we hope to have that on hand. We have decided to use, as far as actually disinfecting, a spray method. Things will be wiped in a normal way, but then we have spray that will be sprayed, that it has a dwell time that is set for COVID-19, that will be used for in the classrooms, in the restrooms each evening, and during the day when we're able to get to those areas. Ventilation, we are planning to have the air handlers be programmed to allow more outside air, and our filters will be changed on a routine basis. Hand sanitizer goes hand in hand with hand washing, and I do have in stock some hand sanitizer. We are on the list to receive even more of that, and we do plan to have different stations. The next bullet point is water bottle filling stations. We plan to discontinue the use of our water fountains and actually put water bottle filling stations in all buildings. That means that your child, if they're in school, would need to come to school with their own water bottle. Custodial staff responsibilities. I think the most important part is to take and not just to say we're going to clean, but we're going to disinfect. And disinfect will be those matters using the appropriate chemicals that are actually rated to be in a school and to be safe in a school, as well as COVID-19 approved. And custodial staff training, will be training all our custodians and taking and even looking at whether we have enough custodial staff to be able to implement all the proper protocols. I think the next slide then is also me.
Thank you, Lois.
Okay, the next is transportation. Again, Mr. Spengler talked about there may be a need for an A and B transportation runs. That will actually depend on how many parents choose to use the transportation. Loading and unloading protocols. The big thing here will be that we'll be loading the back of the bus coming forward. So what that will mean for parents, and actually more importantly our students, is that there will be assigned seats. They'll be loaded from the back, so they will be assigned to a seat, and they will not be able to pick or choose who they sit with. It's going to be they come into the bus, they have an assigned seat. There will be 2 students in each seat, all wearing masks. Again, no food or drink on the bus. We're actually going to try to get them not to open their backpacks. The buses will be disinfected after each run, and if there is the need for multiple runs, we have a plan in place to use the same misting sanitizer. We won't have to wipe each seat. In fact, the misting with the dwell time is actually considered a lot more effective than actually wiping, because when you wipe, you can actually mist sections where the mist will cover an entire seat. The bus drivers, again, will receive training. It's taking a lot of what we know and implementing new protocols to keep all the students safe, keep our drivers safe. And probably the one that is going to be, unfortunately, the least favorite, there'll be no daily transportation change requests. What that really means is when you pick transportation, you will need to take, and you will be given one stop, one bus. So as an example, you will no longer be able to take and do a daily change and ask that your child be changed to be put on a bus with a friend. Again, because all our buses will have assigned seats that will know which child is in the seats, we're not able to have any changes.
And we'll also look at, requiring family members, siblings to sit together on the bus also, just to minimize any additional spread.
That is correct. I'm good, I think.
Yes, thank you, Lois. Lois and David have worked hard on designing, transportation models. Again, so much of this is really, and we purposely designed it this way. Our next step is to see what do the survey results look like as a result of the survey that'll go out this Friday from our principals, in which parents will literally provide a choice of instruction, and the choices will basically be online or in person. So that's one factor. And the other factor is, do you wish to use district transportation, or do you wish to transport your child yourself? So those are big impacts for us. But once we have that data, we can then plan, and we can, kind of get a solid model on what it looks like for the fall. So thank you, Lois. Thank you, David. And we'll now get on to some building level highlights here. And we are starting with Eric, I think.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. So good evening, everyone. My name is Eric Doberman. I'm the principal at Sheckler Elementary School. So clearly, we are well aware that all of these major transitions may impact our students in the K through 4 level, possibly the most. So we tried to balance the changes with that notion that we simply don't want to frighten or scare kids, and we don't want to throw them out of a routine that they get used to. So I'm just going to jump right into some of the changes that we talked about and that we have planned to make. Starting with arrival. So we are staggering our arrival time. Previously, last year, all students could show up around 8:30, and they could enter the building to eat breakfast if they so desired. However, this year, we're basically going to block off the front driveway until 8:45. And this is important to note because I understand that parents have to prepare for this change with work schedules and childcare schedules. So we will communicate this. So at 8:45, the driveway will be open. At that point, we would like kindergarten, first, and second grade students to be dropped off if they are not using district transportation. So their parents would drive up the driveway beginning at 8:45, and they would have about a 15-minute window to drop those K1 and 2 students off. Out front at that time, we would expect to have an SRO out front along with a few teachers to monitor traffic and to make sure that students are exiting the cars safely to get into school. Additionally, we will not be opening up car doors, which was a Sheckler staple for many years. And quite frankly, some of our teachers actually enjoyed doing it. But we want to limit our staff touching car doors, quite frankly, for their health as well. So students will have to exit their cars on their own and get out of their cars and enter the building. So again, 8:45 to 9 o'clock would be K1 and 2. Then starting around 9 o'clock, we would ask that the 3rd and 4th grade parents drop their students off from 9 o'clock to 9:15. We know that there are going to be some crossover parents and students that maybe they're carpooling or they have siblings in different grade levels. We totally understand that and expect that to happen. So they'll just drop off in one of those windows, preferred windows. Because we anticipate possibly a lot of students riding cars this year, being in cars and dropped off, we have developed a loop around the lower parking lot at Sheckler in an effort to avoid 14th Street backup, which occurs right now without any of this being in place. So that is the idea of staggering the drop-offs as well. So when students get out of their cars, they'll be able to enter to eat breakfast. We expect to have our cafeteria and our gymnasium open for breakfast and lunch daily. We've added we will add many more tables and chairs to allow for distancing while eating. And we will continue to have monitors in the cafeteria during breakfast and lunch to help make sure that distancing occurs. I was talking with Mr. Mothersbaugh, our food service director, and he is developing a plan to kind of separate the cafeteria workers from the children as much as possible. So we'll probably have tables set up just outside of our serving lines where students can go in front of the serving line so they're not in the kitchen area in a more confined space, grab their meal, and then go sit down. So we'll put that into place. Now, I'll go with exiting. I know I'm jumping to the end of the day, but let's jump all the way to the exit of the day. So we expect to start our dismissal procedure about a half an hour early. So that would start around 2:20 this year. Again, we have an expectation that there are going to be many double bus runs. So we need to get our transportation started as early as possible, so that the first round of buses can get out and then get back. So the students, when called by their bus number, which isn't typical at Sheckler, but this year it will be our normal way to do it. As buses arrive, we will call students by bus number. We expect that to help distancing in the hallway at dismissal, because we used to call by classroom. So all 25, 26 kids from one classroom would walk out at one time. Well, by calling bus numbers, we know that students will be coming from multiple classrooms and not being so close together. Not to mention, it allows our buses to get to leave Sheco a little bit earlier, so they don't have to wait for the other buses. While those buses are being dismissed, we will dismiss our walkers as well. So any parent pickups or wide care, gentle care, things like that, they'll be dismissed towards the front of the building, again to help distance the walkers and the bus riders. So we're using both ends of the building as we had in the past. The major difference for picking up students this year is that parents will not be walking in to the cafeteria to sign them out as they have in the past. It would just be too many people in a confined space, and it would go against the tenets that we're trying to establish here. So what will happen is that there'll be doorways out front and on the side of the building that will be designated by grade level for pickup. So kindergarten and first grade may be over by the nurse's office in that hallway. So parents who have a kindergarten or first grader would go over towards that sidewalk. At the dismissal bell, the doors would be open and the students would be left out those doors to be unified with those parents. In the meantime, while all this is happening, we'll have teachers at each door, keeping track of the students who are leaving from that door. The way we used to do it in the cafeteria is that a parent would come in, sign the student out with a teacher. We would have their signature. We would know what kid they're picking up. But because of this, we don't want to have that gathering. So the teachers who are in charge of each exit door for each grade level will be taking that attendance as students walk out. After the last student walks out of any particular door in the building, that set or group of teachers will walk out to make sure there are no students left behind, not reunified with a parent, and then close the door. If there is a student who is wandering or not unified with a parent, we'll escort that student back in and then start our protocols with calling the parents and things like that. So that's a general breakdown for exiting and entering. The self-contained classrooms aren't very new to Sheckler. The only addition to the self-contained is that this year we will have expressive arts teachers pushing into the classroom to reduce the flow of students in the hallways throughout the day. Not to mention, we'd like those students to continue to work in their classrooms at their workspace, so as not to have 4 or 5 different classrooms working in an art room, touching the tables that multiple kids are touching. So again, it's just an effort to maintain these protocols that we're putting in place. Transitioning in congregate settings, we are going to follow the exact details that Mr. Spangler identified. Mrs. Reed has bought multiple dots that we will use on the Sheckler floors when students are transitioning to and from lunch, and maybe to and from recess areas or to and from breaks, to help them remember what 6 feet looks like. So those floors will be dotted all over the place. So that's how we're going to manage the transitioning. And obviously the masks will be worn and the teachers will be monitoring that as well. I talked a little bit about the meal service. Mr. Mothersbaugh is coming up with a great plan for that for Sheckler. So I did touch upon that. We'll space the kids out. We'll get them through the line as quickly as possible with as much touchless service as possible. Large group gatherings, pretty much there won't be any large group gatherings. We've come up with a recess plan that spreads up to 3 classes outside at any time. We plan on using the upper softball field, the baseball outfield area, as well as the rest of the grass area at Sheckler. The playground equipment will be shut down, unfortunately, for students this year, because it just wouldn't be safe to have 540 kids touching the same stuff. I'll move on to sharing materials. So our teachers are in this week and next week. They're prepping their classrooms for maximum distancing, and they are taking out any items that students would typically manipulate together. So math manipulatives or classroom libraries, things like that. We're also unfortunately shutting down our book circulation in our library this year, and we will use the EPIC system, which is basically a digital library system, and we'll try to get our kids up and running with that and familiar with that as soon as possible. And the last bullet that I'd want to cover tonight, although there's much more to talk about, I do understand, but the last bullet I would cover is Y care. We do anticipate the need for before and after school care, and we would like to continue to have Y care be part of our building so they can continue to use the cafeteria and gym area in the morning and the afternoon. However, if approved, we will let Y care know that parents won't be able to come into the building, that the Y care employees will have to meet those parents outside, have their students sign in and sign out, just like we're trying to do at Sheckler. So although that's a quick snapshot of many, many hours of work, it'll give you a brief overview of what we're looking to do at Sheckler. We're also going to encourage our staff, possibly anyone who's willing to wear the face shield instead of the mask covering, because we think it's important that our kids, especially our really young kids, see a human face when they enter the building, especially our kindergartners for the first day of their school career, and all the other kids, quite frankly. So we're trying to take all this into consideration and plan appropriately. So that's about all I have for right now.
Thank you, Eric. Good job, Sheckler administration, for really thinking of every imaginable, if I could talk, I'd be okay, detail, and certainly more as we think things out even more. But I really appreciate you guys thinking about our students, and their families first and safety first, and coming up with an instructional model and procedures that really protect everyone in the building, students and staff. So thank you. I did want to just announce quickly that Catty did post a PDF of this entire plan under the news section of our website. So if anyone is having trouble accessing the full plan that's out there, on YouTube watching, and you can't locate it, or you missed the QR code, there is a PDF version under the news section on our district website. So thank you, Sheckler. We'll now move on to Catasauqua Middle School, who has been, I know Melissa and her team have been working very hard in setting up model classrooms and looking at different cafeteria eating arrangements and things, and really have also done an incredible job with coming up with some extremely ingenious solutions to some of our problems. So I'll turn it over to Melissa now.
Okay, thank you. And good evening. My name is Melissa Inselman, the middle school principal, and I'm going to go ahead and provide an overview of some of the building level protocol and procedures. So I'm going to start with entering and exiting the school building. At the middle school, in order to promote social distancing, students are going to use 4 different entrances to enter and exit the building. So arrival time, we are going to set at 7:40 a.m. and that is to help prevent students from congregating outside. So students will enter the building at 7:40 a.m. at those 4 entrance points, and they will enter in a single file line to the extent as possible. So 5th grade will enter through the front main doors, which is the lobby. 6th grade is going to enter through the lower side cafeteria doors, and 7th grade will enter through the front doors by the flagpole that leads to that related arts area, and then they can enter into the auditorium. And 8th grade will enter through the side door by the memory guarding, and they're going to enter into the one half of the gymnasium, just as a temporary holding place. And the gymnasium will have the divider door closed to be able to provide 2 sections of the gym. And all grades have specific locations, as I outlined, that they're going to report to and practice those social distancing at those locations before they report to their assigned classrooms. And We are going to provide some type of video that'll be placed on our Google Sites and some visual graphs just to help parents with the new drop-off procedures and pickup procedures. And we are going to put this on our social media, Facebook, things like that, just to be able to get the communication out to parents, all of the different protocol and procedures that we're putting into place for them. We're also going to have our SRO officer and staff members that will be assigned to those different 4 entrance points for students as they enter and exit the building, just to help with them provide some measures that we can help put into place to help students and to help parents as well. So once students are in the building, we are going to have a grab and go breakfast, and this will be made available for students in the morning, and the times will be staggered for each grade level, along with enforcing the social distancing guidelines. Students will walk through one door of the gymnasium and pick up a grab and go breakfast, and that they will eat during their homeroom. We will have the red dots, as Eric had mentioned, spaced throughout our hallways, just to be able to provide a visual reminder and cue to all of our students about 6 feet of social distancing as they wait in those lines. For exiting the building, our dismissal time is modified. Our students will start exiting at 1:50 p.m. and this will allow for a staggered dismissal for each grade level. For students remaining in classroom, as Mr. Spangler and Dr. Litzdoning had talked about, we are going to self-contain our students in grades 5 and 6, like an elementary model with 1 teacher. And then students will be assigned to 1 classroom in 7th and 8th grade. So the teachers will move from classroom to classroom, however, our students won't. In addition to our 7th and 8th grade, our enrollment for 7th grade is at 133. We have 133 students enrolled in 7th grade. So we had to be very creative with space, and we had to utilize our larger classrooms, such as our related arts, our art room, our STEAM room, our family and consumer science room, in order to accommodate our total student enrollment. Our other grade levels aren't so bad in terms of enrollment. In 5th grade, we have 108. 6th grade is at 105, and 8th grade is at 111. So those students are able to still remain in those particular classrooms. It was 7th grade that we had to be very creative with space. So our related arts will also push in to classrooms. Again, students will remain in 1 class, and our teachers will be the one to move from class to class. At this time, most of all the non-essential furniture has been removed. I've gone into every single classroom and labeled what furniture needed to be removed in order to accommodate social distancing within the classroom. So right now, our classes are, our desks are configured to be at least 3 to 6 feet of separation in each classroom. And our teachers will be coming in the following week to be able to pick up any type of personal items that they need to remove and take home. All district items will be stored, obviously, to a later date and time when we are able to go back and reconfigure our classrooms. Transitioning to congregate settings, there will be no group bathroom breaks as we had in the past. Students are actually going to use a QR code that they're going to scan in the classroom via their iPad, and that will take them to a Google form that they will then fill out in order to sign out to use the bathroom or restroom. That'll be done on an individual basis. Students will not use lockers. Instead, they're going to utilize their personal book bag that they will then take with them to school and then directly to class. And that's where they'll be able to, house their personal items in their book bag and have all their materials with them that they will need for each course, each subject that they'll be taught. And students will utilize social distancing decals, as we talked about, those red dots as a visual cue when waiting in any service line for breakfast or lunch. Students will have specific seating arrangements in the classroom and also in the lunchroom. Hallways will be taped with a painter's tape or some type of approved tape that Lois will approve for the hallway to provide a structured walking path, and single file lines will be used to the maximum extent as possible. Our meal service, since the cafeteria is probably the smallest out of the 3 buildings on the middle school, we had to get pretty creative in how we were going to utilize additional space in our building. So the middle school cafeteria, with the new guidelines that came out on Friday with the distancing of 6 feet, our overflow will be the 1/2 of the gymnasium. And we do have a meeting on Tuesday with Dan Mothersbaugh, also with Mr. Spangler and Mrs. Reed, and we're just going to go over some details, specific details to outline that process. But we will have 2 locations, the cafeteria, and then also the 1/2 of the gymnasium will be used as a cafeteria for our students. And again, we will have specific seating arrangements. We will have specific protocols, procedures to social distancing, those red dots, decals, to keep everybody safe. The large group gatherings, we will not conduct dances as we have in the past, or recess or field trips. And our annual events such as Meet the Teacher Night, Parent-Teacher Conferences, and Achievement Night will be conducted virtually. In terms of limiting and sharing of materials, since we'll be one-to-one with the iPads, this will actually make this process quite easy. This will reduce the sharing of any type of materials. Students will still be able to collaborate through Google Classroom. Students will utilize their textbook or their consumable workbook, which is an individual assigned workbook when available for specific courses. And as mentioned before, there'll be no sharing of any type of reading library centers or supplies. So I think I've covered just about everything. Yes. Is there any questions?
All right, sounds good.
Okay.
Thank you, Melissa and team for middle school. And we'll now move on to Adam at the high school. Adam and Chris have been doing a great job with arranging schedules and adding some things in the cafeteria. And fortunately, we moved to a block schedule type format last year, which automatically minimizes the number of disruptions in the day. So that's a positive thing among very others. So at this point, I'll turn it over to Adam to give a brief overview of what's happening at the high school.
Good evening. I'm Adam Schnug. I'm the high school principal at Catasauqua. Just wanted to go over a lot of the same stuff the other principals have gone over. I'll be as quick as possible, but I also want to make sure I explain everything as best as possible. So as far as entering and exiting the building goes, we'll start with the entrances. We're very fortunate at the high school. We already have somewhat of an existing staggered arrival onto campus between the buses as well as the car ride or drop-off line, and as well as older students who drive themselves to school. So what we'll be doing a little bit different is we'll be opening up the building at 7:30 so that when students arrive, they will not have to wait outside. They'll be able to go directly into the building, and they'll report to either breakfast for their grab and go breakfast, or they will head to their first block class. We're asking students that'll be coming in from the parking lot or the car rider line will be entering through the main entrance, and they'll be entering through on the west side of that. That's the far left side. Students coming in from the buses will enter through the main entrance as well, and they'll be coming through the far right side, which is the east wing, and they'll be getting into school. That's how we're going to handle entering the building. Like I said, we're a little fortunate. We have somewhat of an oversized building, which is fantastic for cases like this. So we should be able to do that without any problems with social distancing. As far as exiting goes, that's a little bit different because everybody will be exiting at the exact same time. So what we're going to do is we're going to use multiple exits, and it's simply going to be based on the hallway that you're in during your fourth block class. So if you're upstairs in the west wing for your fourth block class, there'll be a slightly staggered dismissal, and you will head out the west side, west wing, which is the staircase. You'll head down there, then you'll head out the exit of that building, so that then you head towards your bus or your car or your car ride or whoever's coming to pick you up. Same thing if you're on the second floor of the east wing, you'll be doing the exact same thing, going down the stairs, out the door, a little bit staggered by classroom each time, headed towards where you need to go. If you're on the first floor, there's not as many classrooms on the first floor. So therefore, we'll be able to have those students exit out the main entrance using the doors of the main entrance that are closest to the wing in which they are in. And that should keep kids socially distanced during the exit of the school day. As far as Bob brought up a great point, block scheduling somewhat helps us out to begin with because we do not have as many class transitions. With that being said, we are still going to be modifying the bell schedule for several reasons. One of the big modifications is we found a way we could additionally limit transitions within the school and within the school day. And that is by taking our Rough Rider period on Mondays, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays and dissolving it so that students could have more time in a regular class. How we used to do it on those 4 days is students would report back to a specific block. We're going to take that option away so we're not having 2 additional rotations during the day. The only day we will run Rough Rider will be on Wednesday. And we still have a plan in place for that so that students could sign up for what locations they're going to, still participate in clubs and activities, which is very important because that opportunity, we need to make sure it exists for our kids so that they're doing more than just going to class. They're actually doing the stuff that they like to do on top of going to class. During hallway transitions, there is going to be one flow traffic and we're going to be extending the time as a result of that. So we're looking at a 5-minute class transition. Students will have to rotate a specific direction in each hallway. It is possible a student may have to walk the entire school to get to their next class. That's why we're extending it to 5 minutes. Not often will that be the case, but it is possible. Another important part of class transitions this year, we want to not have many gatherings of students. Therefore, there will be no water breaks, no filling up the water bottle at the water station. There will be no bathroom breaks during that time, no nurses visits. We need you to get to your class. Students will be allowed to use the bathroom one at a time or use whatever they need to fill up their water bottle one at a time from class. So we have an idea of what time they left the classroom and where they were headed and what they did, and then they could head back. That seems to be pretty standard with what every building's doing. And then as far as meals go, we're looking at the grab and go breakfast, which is going to be similar pretty much in every building. And for lunch, we're looking at the grab and seated lunch. So basically, we're waiting to get our numbers of how many kids are choosing to do virtual and how many kids are planning on staying at school throughout the day so that we could get an accurate count of how many kids could be in the cafeteria. Fortunately, it's an oversized cafeteria, and we do believe we're going to be able to house students in there safely, just as long as we add a 4th lunch, which is something that is going to happen. We're not going to be able to get away with 3 lunches anymore and keep the numbers appropriate and the social distancing of 6 feet there. So we'll have to add a 4th lunch this year during 3rd block. That will have to happen. As far as large group gatherings go, just like the middle school, there's not going to be many till COVID is behind us. The biggest one we're going to have is graduation, and our first run at this is this week with graduation, limiting outdoor events to 250 people as per the governor's orders and per the Department of Health order. So we will have that ready to go. I'm pretty excited about that. I think it's going to be a great opportunity that we're offering our seniors, and they deserve this. As far as limiting and sharing materials go, we're doing the exact same thing the other buildings are doing. We're going to get creative with how students turn in assignments, whether it's taking pictures of it and emailing it to their teachers or submitting it on Canvas, things like that, to make sure we're not touching many materials amongst students. As far as sports goes, I'm going to let Tom just update us real quick on sports, and then I'll turn it over to anybody who has any questions.
Thanks, Adam. Basically, our return to sports guidelines were approved by the board in June, and we began, I believe it was June 29th was the first week. And so this week we started our 4th week of summer workouts, and things are going really well. The kids have done a great job of doing what they need to do, bringing water, bringing masks, following all the guidelines, as well as the coaches. Our athletic trainers have been here for everything. It's been really good, and the turnout has been really good. So we're pretty happy with how things have gone. PIAA did have a meeting last week and basically sent out a press release that they are proceeding with fall sports as scheduled right now until they're told otherwise by the state, the governor, Department of Health, or whoever's going to make the final decision. So that's basically where we are. Lehigh Valley Health Network will be getting us an updated return to play guidelines for the start of fall sports, and we'll hopefully get that by the August committee meetings and get it approved at the August board meeting. And that's basically it.
All right, thank you, high school team. Good job. Okay, so we're going to take a little bit of time here now and talk about professional development and things like that. And that is Christina's realm.
Yes, so I just wanted to share that our K through 12 faculty and staff and our administrators will be participating in COVID training that will be delivered online through our Safe Schools online platform. Everyone will learn about COVID awareness. They'll learn about stopping the spread, appropriate hygiene and respiratory etiquette. Also about managing anxiety and stress. And all employees will be required to review our health and safety plan, as well as the embedded protocols for faculty and staff. And at the end of the training, everyone will need to acknowledge their review of the plan and that they have completed the entire training. So we will be disseminating the training information this week. I know our administrative team has already started. Many have finished the training. So we will be rolling the training out to the remainder of our faculty and staff this week. And they will have until just before the students arrive to complete it. So I believe that's August 30th. Also, our custodians will participate in additional professional development related to the chemicals that they are using, the new equipment that they are using, so that they are prepared. And finally, I should also mention that our coordinator of student services and safety coordinator, Shelley Keffer, has done a fantastic job of arranging trauma-informed training for our K-12 faculty and staff as well. So we have started the process. We participated in the Trauma 101 training, and we will be continuing with that training throughout this school year. Additionally, on this slide, you can see we have listed student instruction and signage. So we will have signage all over the building related to social distancing, hand hygiene, and respiratory etiquette. Additionally, we will be using videos. We'll be using our news shows. We'll be making announcements periodically and throughout the year, reinforcing those topics to ensure that everyone can stay healthy and safe. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Christina. And we are now on to the communication plan, which I will just give a brief overview for here. After tonight's hopeful approval of this plan by the Board of Education, tomorrow morning we'll really kind of kick off our really strong communication of the plan. So that'll start with a communication to the community, to parents from me. So that will be tomorrow, and in tandem, Christina will be communicating with the staff relative to the plan and what she just mentioned about the professional development, the required review of the plan. And then on Thursday, our principals will be holding faculty meetings, virtual faculty meetings, explaining the plan, taking questions and things like that. And explaining some of the details relative to our entire staff. At the same time, that will be all out on our website. The plan will be posted, all of the details. We will then, on the 24th, which is Friday, our principals will send out the survey, I'll call it. So the survey will accomplish a number of things, but the main goals there are for parents to choose an instructional model between the face-to-face, in-person instruction, or the online, because that will allow us to do decision-making. So that's number one. And the other very important task for parents will be to choose a transportation mode. In other words, inform us if you are going to take district transportation, or if you wish to bring your child to school, or they will walk. So that will all be happening this week, kind of a busy week. And then we are allowing about 1 week for the return. That those survey results will be due on the 31st, which will then allow us to do some planning and decision-making in tandem with, with the landscape of the both region and state, and also nationally, what things look like. So that's all what's happening. So that's the communication piece. And I just like to reflect back on, the general underlying principles for our planning has really been to ensure the safety and wellness of our students and staff, in tandem, have high quality instruction embedded in all of our models for our students. Also, as we mentioned, and I try to weave this through the presentation, is to attempt to provide as much predictability as we can, because we understand parents' lives and what this does to them. So we wish to weave predictability through that, and also have choices so that parents can make choices that might best meet their needs, and then certainly use our resources efficiently. So I would like to thank you. I would like to thank, certainly the board for enduring the last hour and a half of presentation, but also our committee, which I'm not going to name everyone on our local committee, but we had really an extensive representation on our committee, parents, teachers, staff members, board members, all of our professionals, our administrators. And then if I take that out to regionally, we had representation from every school district in the entire region, working together in attempting to do some parallel planning. As you know, the real challenge for us in school administration right now is that moving target that we have at the state level and beyond. And it's very difficult for us to operate in that. So we end up planning, numerous models, and we attempt to bring as much detail and continuity to those plans and predictability as we possibly can. So, as things change, we'll certainly keep everyone updated, and we'll go from there. So Cathy, I'm going to turn now, if you have received any questions through our process there on YouTube.
There has not been any questions or comments.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Board, any questions before we close out this presentation?
I have one. Fire alarms. Is that going to be affected, and how are we handling that?
So if we're like fire drills and things like that, the state required drills. So yeah, so what we know right now, it's a great question. So I did reach out to PDE, and right now that we do have all of the same requirements, which is every month that we're in session, there is a required fire drill, which yes, absolutely, principals. I think we talked about this I don't remember when that was. It was either today or at our meeting on Thursday. So I'm not sure, but we did speak about that we will need to implement, continue the fire drills and also the bus evacuation drills, which I'm lumping that together, Dale, because we report all that to PDE like in the same format. So yeah, that's all still required. It's kind of a strange situation. I mean, let's face it, because there you are needing to employ social distancing techniques in the middle of a fire drill that, let's face it, we want kids to get out of the building as quickly as possible, in an orderly fashion, obviously. So we will be instructing, students to do that in a orderly fashion and observe social distancing requirements, but they will wear their masks. So, I mean, they can be, a little bit closer in proximity. So yes, we have to continue those. So I appreciate that, heads up. Principals, do you have anything to add to that one? I'll take that as a no.
I have a quick question about for Sheckler. I saw that for the lunch, or you were talking about they're going to put the tables in the gym as well. So are they not going to have a gym class at all?
Yeah, so part of our schedule will be all of our expressive arts will be pushed in so that students can stay in their classroom and not have like 4 or 5 different classrooms in the art room, in the music room, in the STEAM room, in the library. So gym is one of those things where we're going to try to get Mrs. Pearl outside with students as often as possible, weather permitting. And if the weather is not great, we're also going to try to maybe employ our large group room, even though it's on a slant, it's in a big open space. But thankfully, we have an awesome gym teacher who comes up with some great ideas. So we're going to give her as much notice as we can this week to start planning for that. So yeah, you are correct.
Okay, thank you.
Can I proceed?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, board.
Number 6, no administration board discussion and reports this evening. 7, approval of minutes from prior meetings, school board meeting held on June 11th, 2020. And B, special school board meeting held on June 23rd, 2020. I'll stop there. Do I have a motion?
Dale Hines, so moved.
Lauren Cieslak, second.
This is a roll call, please.
Yes. Jason Bashaw,
Yes.
Jillian Emmert,
Yes.
Christy Cooper,
Yes.
Sean McGinley,
Yes.
Dale Hine,
Yes.
Donald Panto,
Yes.
Lauren Cieslak,
Yes.
and Carol Cunningham.
Yes. Moving on to financial, 8A, charge 2021 tax duplicates approved bonds, and I'll stop there. Do I have a motion?
So moved, Dale Hines.
Second, Jillian Emmert.
This is a roll call, please.
Jason Bashaw,
Yes.
Dale Hine,
Yes.
Christy Cooper,
Yes.
Lauren Cieslak,
Yes.
Jillian Emmert,
Yes.
Donald Panto,
Yes.
Sean McGinley,
Yes.
Carol Cunningham.
Yes. Moving on to number 9, personnel. A, appointment of extracurricular positions 2021 school year.
So moved, Dale Hines, please. Just the one.
Okay. Do I have a second?
Second, Sean McGinley.
This is a roll call, please.
Donald Panto,
Yes.
Jillian Emmert,
Yes.
Sean McGinley,
Yes.
Dale Hine,
No.
Christy Cooper,
Yes.
Lauren Cieslak,
Yes.
Jason Bashaw,
Yes.
and Carol Cunningham.
Yes. 9B, resignations. 9C, retirements. 9D, nomination for appointment. 9E, appointment of mentor teacher, 2021 school year. And I'll stop there. Do I have a motion?
Dale Hines, so moved.
Second, Jason Bashaw.
Any discussion? If not, this is a roll call, please.
Sean McGinley,
Yes.
Lauren Cieslak,
Yes.
Jillian Emmert,
Yes.
Dale Hine,
Yes.
Jason Bashaw,
Yes.
Christy Cooper,
Yes.
Donald Panto,
Yes.
Carol Cunningham.
Yes. 10, curriculum. A, final approval of textbooks for 2021 school year, and I'll stop there. Do I have a motion?
Dale Hines, so moved.
Jillian Emmert, second.
Any discussion? This is a roll call, please.
Christy Cooper,
Yes.
Lauren Cieslak,
Yes.
Jason Bashaw,
Yes.
Jillian Emmert,
Yes.
Donald Panto,
Yes.
Sean McGinley,
Yes.
Dale Hine,
Yes.
Carol Cunningham.
Yes. 11, board approvals. A, approve the Catasauqua Area School District Health and Safety Plan subject to modifications based on guidance for the Office of the Governor, Pennsylvania Department of Education, and/or Pennsylvania Department of Health upon the recommendation of Superintendent and the Pandemic Committee. I'll stop there. Do I have a motion?
Sean McGinley, so moved.
Second, Lauren Cieslak.
Any discussion? This is a roll call, please.
Donald Panto,
Yes.
Sean McGinley,
Yes.
Jason Bashaw,
Yes.
Christy Cooper,
Yes.
Jillian Emmert,
Yes.
Dale Hine,
Yes.
Lauren Cieslak,
Yes.
and Carol Cunningham.
Yes. 11B, approval of modified Catasauqua School District continuity of education plan for the 2021 school year. And 11C, approval is requested of addendum for Lehigh Valley Health Network's guidelines to re-socialization to sports. I'll stop there. Do I have a motion?
So moved, Jason Bashaw.
Second,
Jillian Emmert.
any discussion? This is a roll call, please.
Donald Panto,
Yes.
Lauren Cieslak,
Yes.
Christy Cooper,
Yes.
Jillian Emmert,
Yes.
Jason Bashaw,
Yes.
Sean McGinley,
Yes.
Dale Hine,
Yes.
Carol Cunningham.
Yes. Number 12, no old business. 13, no new business. 14, no accommodations. 15, no information items. And 16, no correspondence. Recognition of guests and visitors.
Carol, I would like to recognize, or actually I'll turn to Melissa to recognize Colleen Mashett, who is here, if you don't mind, if I may do so.
Sure.
Melissa?
Yep, I'm right here. And I'm happy to be able to introduce to you Colleen Machette, and she comes to us from Carlisle, out in Carlisle, and she will be relocating to this area. And when we interviewed Colleen, she was very, very dynamic, enthusiastic, and she had us when she said middle school is her jam. So when she said that, we were excited because middle school teachers need to love middle school kids. So she has her bachelor's of science in elementary education, and she also has her master's in special education, and she has her ELA and her mathematics certification. So she is highly qualified, and she really stood out during our interview process, and we were very happy to have her part of our Catasauqua Middle School family. So Colleen, congratulations to you and welcome.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Welcome aboard.
Colleen, congratulations. We're glad to have you at Catty.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited.
18, next meeting dates, Wednesday, August 5th, 2020, 3 o'clock, Building and Grounds, 4 o'clock, Academics Committee meeting, and 5 o'clock, Athletic Committee meeting. And Tuesday, August 11th, 2020, 7 o'clock, School Board meeting. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Hold on a minute. Bob, did you see the email with the questions?
Yes, I was just going to intervene here. So I do have a set of questions from a Catasauqua Area School District resident. So there are 5 questions, and it just has to do with some particulars. I can either read those and answer, and we can talk about those. They're in email format. I can certainly have our administration respond directly back to her. I think honestly, it may be the best method.
Could you email the questions to us also so we could see their concerns, please?
Absolutely, along with responses. Yeah, and you know, allow me to read them for the record. I think that might be wise for us to do. So number one, will masks be limited to solid or patterns, or are words, symbols, characters okay as long as they adhere to normal dress code? So my basic response to that one is that, you know, anything that students are wearing just needs to fall into our dress code. And, you know, the basic rule there is that we don't disrupt the educational process. So I think that's, you know, the response there. Two, I did not hear what the plan is for bus students entering Sheckler. Will they go straight to their classrooms?
If they're not eating lunch, that would be correct. I mean, sorry, breakfast. yeah.
Breakfast.
Sorry.
Okay. So if they're not eating breakfast, they will go directly to their classroom, correct? In the case of AB bus runs, whether AM, PM, or both, will parents have more notice than the traditional bus card a week before school starts, just to get, you know, some better timing so that people can adjust and plan for before and after school care?
Would you like me to answer that?
Yes, Lois.
The answer would be, we are planning, it will also have a seat assignment. So we haven't, because we still don't know exactly how many students we have, but this year we're looking into the possibility even of a bus card, because if there's an A and B run, it's not like you have a choice. If you miss the A run, doesn't mean that you can get on a B run. So again, it's going to be really, really important for parents to take and answer a lot of years, the bus card comes out and then we have 100 returned to us for the incorrect phone numbers or addresses. So parents need to remember that they need to absolutely pick that bus choice, and it's not a once it's picked, it's no longer a flexible choice. So yes, we hope to get them out as early as possible.
Yeah, so they will be out. We know that by the 31st, we'll have our numbers, and then, you know, whatever time it takes to process that afterwards. But I think it is important and crucial that we get those out, you know, yeah, definitely as early as possible. We can't hold on that one. Okay, in the number 4 out of 5 here, in the case of hybrid learning, will there be a penalty for students unable to attend synchronous instruction, or will all instruction continue to be recorded for those students without parent supervision or being cared for, et cetera, at that time to view? So in the case of hybrid learning, will there be a penalty for students unable to attend synchronous instruction? So I would answer, I don't think, you know, in that particular model that we would be, you know, that there would be a penalty. I think that, you know, would be some issues. So we'll certainly have some options for that information, you know, whether it's recorded or whatever the case is. Does that sound fair, Christina?
Yes, and I think some of that will depend on what the hybrid option would look like, which will depend on how many students and if we're even in that if that is even an option that we're running.
Right, agree. Yeah. Okay, number 5, does the district plan to hire any supplemental health services staff to assist in the day-to-day duties of the school nurses? The increased number of student visits anticipated, plus the need to keep sick and well students separated, will be difficult for one person. Also, school nurses may fall ill themselves due to their exposure. That is something that actually was just brought up to me. It may have been yesterday or earlier today. So it's something we do need to look at. That has not particularly been in our plan, but it was interesting. Now it's been brought up twice. So it's something we definitely need to consider because we count on our health professionals. So I think we do need to take a look at that. So that's it. Those were the questions. Thank you, Mrs. Cunningham.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Dale Hines, so moved.
Second?
Lauren.
Sean McGinley.
Go ahead.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Meeting adjourned.
Thank you, board. Take care. Bye.
Yeah, bye. Bye.
Bye.